All right, we're gonna go and call the meeting to order. We'll start off the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we have a quorum. Do we have public comment? Okay, we will turn it over to Trustee Miller.
All right, so yeah, step one of our 2025 budget is here for you, the board. Obviously, the department heads are going to be coming up here in a few minutes to explain everything. As far as I know, there's not going to be any surprises to you in this budget. These are all things that we've talked about over this last little over a year and a half now. The plan that the different administrations have put in place for us moving forward, how we can make sure that we keep the township financially sound while at the same time accomplishing some of the goals that we've shared through those conversations that we've had. So yeah, I look forward to having these conversations, and obviously if there's any questions as we go, please let us know so we can make sure that we obviously we need everybody comfortable with it as we move forward. So
Okay. Any questions? All right, looks like Ashley's up first. Yes, ma'am.
So the first thing we'll talk about are our two bonds, the Murphy Park bond and the Station 144 bonds. Those are just plain and simple annual lease payments that we pay for those in July and then in December. So the Murphy Park and the Fire Station 144 bonds and the amounts that are due. Any questions about those two? Okay, it's pretty simple.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
The rest is gonna be that easy, correct?
Sure.
One line.
Mine are gonna be that easy. How about that? I can't guarantee anybody else's. The next is township assistance. We are giving a 3% increase across the board for salaries.
Wait a minute.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. We're opening the account and open this
Okay,
spreadsheet.
okay.
That one was, I had a little trouble getting that one to load some of them too, so it's okay.
It's not Steve, it's touching. Okay.
Besides that, we added a little bit more into the training budget for her, moving forward. Kind of went through what we spent so far this year versus what we are expected to spend. Did some calculations for 25 and then threw everything else in housing, because that's where we spend 90% of our money in that fund. Any questions about township assistance?
Now it's at my Excel stuff.
No.
There we go, with technology.
Okay, there we go.
And maybe, this is maybe a dumb question at the wrong time, but from a transportation standpoint, is this a discussion of continue forward? Is that a different meeting?
well, I was actually getting ready to bring that up with you. Right now, we are not planning on putting anything in the 2025 budget for the transportation unless the board wants to direct us otherwise. We've seen some of the numbers. We've not had any conversations as a group. But this would be an opportunity that if the board feels that we need to have that discussion or get some of those numbers put in the budget, obviously we would want to do that very soon.
Yeah, I mean, I think early numbers, or not early, but most recent numbers I saw, like somewhere between 70 and 90 or almost sometimes $100 per ride that it's kind of generating. And is it a more wise use of funds that for other things that may impact more folks? I mean, we have X number of dollars. What's the way to impact the most folks and the most at need, if you will? I can't imagine how that is. And I mean, it's probably cheaper to quite frankly, Uber somebody or get a cab than
Yeah.
it is to do that if that's really a need we feel from a
Yeah.
transportation standpoint. I hate that, but that's just the fact of the efficiency and the cost, and I don't know if senior center has any way to offset that or something, but it just doesn't seem to make, it's challenging to continue that way.
And certainly the idea of the project was good. The intentions of the project were good. We weren't sure what the costs were going to be. We did have the early estimates, and we were concerned that those were high. And then as that's coming to fruition, they are in fact pretty accurate estimates. And again, we've thrown what we can to try to make this work and to make this successful. But when we look at the cost breakdown of what it is costing per ride, it is not very efficient at all, in my opinion.
I'd just like to add that I couldn't agree more. I think you and I, when we talked last in your office, we both said the same thing. You could Uber for less. So I don't think it's a wise use of funds. I guess my question is, and I'm glad that we're not putting it in 2025. I guess my question is, so the van is now legally owned by, see, we donated the van, correct? Okay, so we are free and clear in terms of all of that?
Yeah, it is right now owned by Senior Service, I believe, and I would have to look at the agreement to refresh my memory. At the termination of that agreement, then that van would go back to the ownership of the township again.
Okay, and how long is that agreement for? 3 years?
It ends in December of this year.
Okay.
And we have to give a 30-day notice to
Right.
end that
Okay,
agreement.
because
That
we
is
even
specific.
know that we're not putting funds in the 2025 budget.
She and I have not had that
Okay,
conversation
we should
yet.
probably have that conversation with her.
And figure out how we divest of the vehicle. So.
Yeah, because they cannot use the vehicle. Their other funding doesn't allow them to acquire a used vehicle. So, it doesn't make any sense. They just don't have the ability to utilize that. So that's why it would revert back to us, then we can be sold.
I just think a heads
Whatever
up
sources.
is the appropriate thing to do.
Yeah,
That way
absolutely.
she's not blindsided, in case that was something they were continuing to plan into 2025.
We will have that conversation sooner than later.
And Ashley, make sure you put that on your to-do to make sure that we don't skip past that 30-day notice.
Definitely have that, don't take notice. As one thing I did want to point out, as you can see, our projected spend is more than what we budgeted due to the van, the transportation itself. We never budgeted for that in 24 either, so we will be coming back and asking for an additional appropriation, probably a little closer towards the end of the year. I just didn't want that to be a surprise to anyone when that came around. Any other questions about township assistance?
For 2024 then, so then we won't have any additional money left over, correct?
It does not appear that way, and that is if we spend everything that we are projected to spend.
But we would have the ability to go into reserves.
We could dip into our cash reserves with an additional appropriation if that is something you guys want to do. We just have to be careful of the timing of that at the end of the year.
Yeah, that's why when we look at, it's kind of changing things for the senior center, for example. They can utilize those funds for transport for folks in the community. You got Merrily Mayor, you got other areas that I think could impact a lot of other, that may not qualify otherwise, but there's definitely need. It's a way to utilize those funds for that. And I just think we hate to take away from that. I think this year was somewhat of a takeaway to some of those organizations, and I think they felt that. Now they shouldn't necessarily plan on getting those kind of funds, but the reality is what it is when it comes down to it.
If for 25, we want to fund those or plan on funding those again, kind of revert back to where we were a couple, 3 years ago.
Right.
Is this the time to discuss that? I know that technically we cannot,
So if we want to
we can
use,
increase, but we can decrease. Is that,
yes,
but anyway, so I'm just talking hypothetically. then.
so if we wanted to build in 10 for food, 10 for transportation, 10 for housing, we needed to do that now for these community service agreements, right? They're not grants, yes. So if we wanted to do that, we need to do that now.
It's just one of those things, when you look at the impact of those other things, it seems to touch more people, if you will.
Yes.
And that seems to be, instead of money just sitting in there, a fairly large amount, and not doing anything to impact those in need. But, I mean, it's township assistance, it's what it is, simplistically.
Yeah.
You know, that's my feeling about it.
My preference is that's better, more impact with, with really less dollars.
Mhm.
Yeah, when you look at the projected spend for just transportation, almost 51,000, that impact on a food pantry, senior transportation, other things, that impacts thousands of people that, I'm not saying it has to be 51,000.
No. So we have two ways of doing this in 25 if we want. We can either build it into our budget now, or we can do additional appropriations and tap into our cash. Either way, we'll be tapping into the cash.
Right.
Because what is budgeted is all we will be receiving for 25. So we will be tapping into that cash reserve that's in the Township Assistance Fund, which is a little over 370,000. So whichever way.
Is there a preference?
If we do an additional appropriation, we could do the additional appropriation at the time we granted these agreements, so we would know more of how much we need, instead of just randomly choosing numbers now. So like we put 10, 10, and 10, and then if it turns out to be 15 and 5, when we do the
Right.
additional appropriation along with these agreements, we would have a better understanding of how much
Fair.
we would need.
So you're suggesting, recommending, waiting and doing an additional appropriation?
That would be my recommendation, yes.
Yeah, that would also give us an opportunity to whittle away at tax increases there's no need to build reserves if we're not going to spend them.
Yep.
So that makes sense too.
Any other questions on township assistance?
So Township General, this is where it gets a little more trickier, because we get those lit funds in here that come into the Township General Fund and have to stay in the Township General Fund. We can't move them out, but we spend them on fire and parks. Those are all in this lit column here. Everything in the 25 proposed budget is actual township spending. Again, 3% increase for salaries across the board. You'll see the front office assistant was pretty high. That's because she was never budgeted there for 24. So that's the true salary she'll be making in 25. A little change in retirement went down a little bit due to the fact that we pay on the previous years and number of hours worked. Workers' comp went up a little bit.
Actually, I'm so sorry, when he's doing anything, am I allowed to use that computer?
Yeah, if you want to, or you want mine. Wait till you get that up, or just?
No, go ahead.
Okay. Workers' compensations kind of fluctuated between everybody. We had an audit with our new company, and we found out that we had people that were classified wrong in workers' comp. They fixed all that for us, so there were some township people that were classified incorrectly. There was parks people classified incorrectly. So you'll see that increases throughout here. Let's see, that's about it in personnel. Oh, insurance going up across the board again. I feel we're in a better place for 24 than we were for 23 when we had these budget talks, or even towards the end of 24. So I think we're doing good there. Let's see, what else big did we have that went up? Payroll went up by a significant amount of money. All payroll costs will now be paid for by the township instead of each department paying for their own. It's simpler on us that way. It's something that the township controls. They can't control their own payroll costs. We pick the payroll company, we pick how it's done, all that kind of stuff. So we thought that was fair to throw that in. The township part. Property and casualty insurance, of course, is always gonna go up for all of our property. Kind of went up across the board. There's fire and parks as well. We did put a big, huge increase in capital improvements. There are some things around the building that need to be done. We need to upgrade our camera system. We've kind of looked into that for this year. We got a couple quotes, so we thought we're kind of a little high, so we're gonna keep digging into that to see if we can't get that done. There's a lot of dead areas around here that we need to get covered here in this building itself. IT upgrades went up 33%. We just have some older equipment that we need to get replaced. Any questions about the township budget?
Also maybe a dumb question, but along the insurance side of things, with some change in that, how does that impact like out-of-pocket kind of premiums to folks?
We are not changing our out-of-pocket premiums.
Okay, sorry, you may have said that already. Did you already say
No,
that?
I did not,
Okay.
sorry, no.
Okay.
Yes,
Sorry.
no, that
I
is
was
a change.
looking along numbers and.
We are not making this year.
Okay.
So we actually decreased it at the beginning of last year, 50 cents a paycheck for health insurance. We're leaving that steady for this year, so.
Okay.
Surprise. I don't think anybody knew that. Surprise.
Oh.
Looks like I know where we're headed.
Well, it's an important thing to ask. Don't tell anybody.
We approved this. We're taking it back. Congratulations, Rob.
Cemetery restoration, which cemeteries are you?
So there's been a lot of the fences down. So we need to buy some more of the wood. We're out of the wood for the fences, so we're just going to use some of that money for that, and then just wherever we find. There's not anything specific.
Okay.
That's why there's just
No stone,
not that we have planned. Yes.
okay, like we did a few
Yeah.
years ago.
Nope. Nothing like that. Just some little stuff around there that we need to get taken care of.
Shockingly expensive.
Yes.
Any questions about general or the split between lit between us and Parks Fire? Okay. Alrighty, it is Parks' turn.
I was getting nervous.
I'll leave this here, that's how you control the TV. I mean, you guys are controlling your own destiny.
All right, don't worry, I made notes ahead of time. So as far as salaries, we'll start with salaries. Just like Ashley said, the majority of people got 3% across the board. There were a few that changed. Our program manager, just the way she is classified, there was a new law that was passed, and so we had to bump hers up a little bit more just to meet within that standard of exempt employees. And then one of the groundskeepers will be adding a position, assistant maintenance super, so they'll be getting a promotion, so that does come with a little bit of an increase as well. And then our camp coordinator, she got a larger raise due to market value of her position. And then our part-time recreation assistant is moving to a full-time recreation assistant. So those were the 4 big changes in salaries. And then moving through the rest of the budget, I'm just going to go over kind of the big changes. And then at the end, if you have questions about other lines, I'd be happy to touch base on those lines too. So as we go through line 2AC, Lily Camp operating, we actually decreased that line. We found that once we started the initial buy-up of the supplies, we're really maintaining a lot of those supplies out there. So we're doing really well with that. So we decreased that budget. 2AD software. The revenue for that one actually moved. So you'll see an increase in that one. And that's just because with the software updates that we have, but then also we are charged for our software, we are charged a certain fee based on how much money we collect in. So we're just adjusting for that increase. And then you can see there in 2AE, special events and programs, we did increase that one. That one, they make up all the money that they spend in that budget and make a little bit more in that, but we want to be completely honest with how much they're spending. Not only that, we're averaging about 31 programs a month now. We have so many more programmers. We want to make sure that we're having quality programs. So we did bump that line up. Then as we go down to DC, MAP chemicals, we're seeing that we're teetering around 100,000 each time. So we did increase that due to what we're spending on chemicals. When we get to 2DI, we decreased that one, and that's because we got rid of Heartland for point of sale and stuck with RecDesk. So just like I mentioned, the software is going up, RecDesk goes up, but this software goes down, so it kind of evens itself out. Then for 2F, the ice rink events, that money was allotted back to special events instead of in the ice rink budget. Then when we get to 2GA, extended care snacks, that was actually a decrease. We're finding that we're not spending as much on snacks as we originally thought, so we decreased that budget. You can see we decreased that substantially. We actually work with the school and order all of our stuff through the school, and so we did get that at a little bit of a cheaper rate. 2GB, we decreased that line as well. We're finding that we're maintaining a lot of our equipment. That fee was really just the startup costs, and now we can finally see what we're actually spending each year, so we did decrease that one. 2GC, extended care uniforms. This one, we're still shocked by the number of how expensive uniforms are out there, so we tried to make it a little bit more accurate with what we're spending, and that's just based on the sheer volume of employees that we're hiring for that position. We also use uniforms as an incentive to get people to stay and have good work performance. For 2GG, youth services software, again, that's one where we are not only retaining, but we have software costs, we have IT needs for that, we have laptops at each location, we have phones at each location, and then the credit card processing for that is included in those fees. Then when we get to 3BA, we increased this line. It's our printing and advertising. We are right now working on updating our trail maps, and so we're going to be doing brochures, printed brochures next year for each of the parks. But also with the increase of programming, increases the amount of printing and advertising we're wanting to do. Then when we get to 3EB, the grounds material is so much more expensive next year because we are updating a lot of our gravel roads that we have. So with that, it's not just the stone, we also have to rent the equipment to kind of break it out and make it even as well. When we get to 3ED, tree removal, you'll see that one is substantially higher. We have several dangerous trees that our employees cannot remove ourselves just based on their location. We have some in the upper park and then some along Whipple Lane. 3FA, equipment maintenance and repair. We're finding that a lot of our stuff in our main park is so much older that a lot of things are breaking more. So we want to make sure that we have enough kind of in that budget to be able to spend when our HVAC goes out, we need air conditioning, irrigation goes out, those types of things. We want to make sure that we have the money in there to be able to fix those things.
Is it grounds equipment, Laura, or things that we should consider replacing?
It's,
Are they getting to that age, or they're kind of in that intermediate repair
Yeah.
now, but
we're getting to the age where things are breaking and we need to repair them, but it seems like there are a lot of unexpected things that come up that are very expensive. Like let's say the Pavilion Center HVAC system breaks every single year. It's a very expensive system. We budgeted to see how much it would be to rip out that system and put in a new system. It's very expensive to do that. It just wouldn't be cost effective. So right now we're kind of putting in money to plan for some of those things. That way we're not coming back later and asking you for those things. So it's not just grounds material. We do need to update some of our chainsaws, weed eaters, those types of things. But this is really having it there for whenever those big items break. Like that. And we're finding it more and more frequent. That's why we wanted to make sure we put all that in there. Then when we get to 3IE, the MAP electric, that's just to keep it in line with where we're really at. When we get to 3IP, pool maintenance and repairs, that one is a little bit more expensive, and that's because each year We need to replace solenoids for the wave pool. We have the motor that broke that we spoke about. We want to pay for that. And then also we have to repaint different patches in the pool each year. That's why the pool is always white. It's not fancy colors because every year you're going to have to do that with Indiana pools. And then also we're wanting to add more ADA accessible picnic tables to Murphy Park. And then 3JE, that's a new line, and that is just to pay for the utilities for that new barn that is going to be built. Do you have any questions about this budget before I go back to the capital? Okay. And so in the capital, I'll just go over 2025 since each year they kind of change a lot after you go through there. Next year, we are planning on doing the paintings in the Pavilion Center. It's that time. It's on a 5-year rotation. So we'll do outside beams and then inside walls. We're doing campsite updates, so pouring the gravel along that loop. We also want to make individual drives for each campsite and then update some of the signage over there as well. For Paul Park equipment, we want to add agility equipment over at the Paul Park area. Where it says restore, we are needing to restore the Upper Park Playground. We keep pushing that one off and it needs to be done. We need to update some of the features. We'd also like to make it more inclusive, put some nonverbal signage communication boards up, just kind of give it a refresh, a new look to it. Then we get down to the pump track. This is to rent some of the equipment to finish the pump track features. Mower, we need to replace 2 of our mowers. We have some updates for that Explorer barn entered in there. And then also we currently have an ATV that's a New Holland Rustler. We're wanting to exchange that because we do have a lot of problems with that New Holland Rustler. So just exchanging that out. We're going to take it over to P-Car because it won't get used as much at P-Car, but we have a need over there. Right now we have to load it up on a trailer and take it over there each time. And so this will replace that piece of equipment. Any questions about the capital plan? All right. Thank you.
Okay. Fire, you are up.
Actually, I don't get my budget up there.
Just click the X on
Right there?
and then go down to the Excel at the bottom
Oh, gotcha.
and pull fire. That's your cue.
Okay, perfect.
There you go.
Got it. This was the staffing thing you had asked about before the meeting. I'll explain that whenever we get to it. All right. I'm on a time limit. I intend to break. Take it like that, huh?
I'm gonna do shorter or take longer?
Yeah.
Which side, which side are we breaking it?
I mean, the amount is good.
Do you have any questions?
Now it's gonna get even worse. Porter, good job. All right. I'm gonna read through a series of notes that we took on here. So in personnel services, you're gonna see a decrease of 20%. Don't let that fool you. We don't plan on decreasing it, but what we've done is we've recategorized physicals, PFTs, and wellness. You'll see that at the bottom, that those are recategorized. Those are they're less personnel services, and they actually moved into the 300 category because that's where they belong, right? That's where we pay our physicals and stuff from. We are adding the 16 people. They're in class. We're adding 15 for the 16 is for replacement of people. We were hoping that to be 17. One of the people had dropped out of the class the day before it started. So we'll replace them this year with lateral transfers. So as you go through, like I said, you'll see personnel services moving down by 20%. Yet you'll see increases in the other items on proposed. Payroll went up 13%, planned overtime up 14%. Again, we have more people, but we're not going to decrease overtime substantially. We're going to have more people. It's going to be more opportunity for overtime. Hopefully the appropriate staffing will help control that. We'll see where that goes in the future, but we're going to be adequately prepared for next year. Moving down to off-duty training. Off-duty training, we're looking at using that more in 2025 to properly utilize the category. That wasn't something that I was familiar with whenever we came in. Chief Porter and Chief Phipps were discussing different ways that we would use it. I was playing catch up through the year. Next year we have plans on how we will use it appropriately. So that's why you see the increase of nearly 100%. Having people doing things not necessarily pertinent to their job, but pertinent to the department at the reduced rate for off-duty training rate. They're still getting time and a half on $10 an hour, which is $15 an hour for the work that they're doing. That's obviously beneficial to the taxpayer and the department. Moving down to, let's see. Going down to the 200 line items, or the twos. We removed and we consolidated a few categories. The E's are for EMS. When you look at E and the E's, we're adding another apparatus with ladder 144. So we're going to have to increase the number of categories in the EMS category. So all rigs are going to be updated to the protocol standard. We're going to have items like video scopes and such added to all the rigs, which we advertised last year. We were going to be putting on each of the medics. We're now moving that to all of the apparatus, the engines and ladders. That is something that Dr. Nasset's wanting now from everyone, right? So yeah, so that's a direction of the medical director. So we're investing in that. We're a little bit ahead of the curve versus the rest of the county. We're also doing new AEDs for our facilities and our staff vehicles. Those that need updated, replaced, or actually just to exist. We are putting them in all of the staff vehicles because while we're out in public, we got to be able to respond, and we have not necessarily had those on all the vehicles. As we look at operations and awards, 2OA, you see a big increase there. We're going to have more people hitting milestones. We're also trying to bring uniforms up to date. The cost of the brass that we put on our uniforms isn't going down. Making sure that we're adequately outfitting and that we have the means to outfit people appropriately is a significant thing that we cannot overlook and we have to stay up with. On 2OE and 2OS, so when you come out to the operating, we combine those. That is really up 3% total versus 432% that it shows. You look at 53,000 and 10,000 was 63,000. It went up $860. We just combined those two categories, right? So down to prevention, 2 P's, that'll be your preventions. We're getting new CPR mannequins, the ones we have stickers and hands and people all over them. And sometimes you got to clean those up because we are using those not only for our people, but for the public. You look on 2 P's, we have some drone updates and purchases, Knox box going up due to new apparatus, and also updating a smart key system that we need to take care of. In the S's, that'll be the 2 S categories, services and supplies. We combine 2SM and 2SS. And also down in the 3s, we put 3SM up there as well. So that the 2SM, when you look at that, it's up, or which one is it? You got the one that went up 193%, so it'll be 2SS. Again, we combine multiple categories, even one out of the 300s, because SM was materials, that belongs in the 200s. Plus, we're buying hose for the new engines that are coming in. We'll be buying those at the end of next year for their delivery in 26. At least that's what they're telling us right now, but we're going to buy things in 25 for them. Actually, they are coming in 25. They're coming mid-25, I'm sorry. So they were due this year. Now they're both coming next year. So we got to buy hose for those and bring those up to par with the rest of the engines, plus the upkeep of aging vehicles until the new arrive. Ladder 141, you guys have noticed out of service more than in recently. We have Brownsburg's ladder in service. We had our ladder inspections recently. During the ladder inspections, they put it out of service due to unsafe cables. So last year they had said the cables were questionable. This year they put it out of service and said they're unusable. That was about a $10,000 to $15,000 surprise. Those cables are laying in crates out in the bay right now. They don't look like anything highly significant, but when you look at a 100-foot ladder with the weight that it does and the amount of times we put it in and out, whether it be training and runs, that ladder is aged. We're waiting on the new one. It's in production. But until then, we have to keep up with this one. And last year, I think we reported leaf springs falling off, right? So that's been our go-to. Well, now it's the cables on the ladder that were unsuitable. We're not going to put anybody at risk. We have to be prepared for the surprises. So some of these categories get inflated based on outlook and opportunity along with need. So I want you guys to understand that as you look at trending, which I know was requested, and projected spending, I give you a good idea, but I don't know what's going to break. I don't know what's going to go down. And a lot of what we do, we know the cost of repair on our vehicles is hyper expensive. And we have to be ready for that. So we do budget for those things. And that was what we started with proactive budgeting last year. And that's going to continue into 25 as well. It's not about creating a savings account. It's about being prepared for emergencies to keep our equipment in service. 2TM training. We now have a training chief and the training chief with a vision. The dangerous part was putting him with the operations chief, who also has a passion for training. That's a blessing and a curse. So you're going to have a true training budget. There was a lot of thought that went into it. Last year, some of the things we thought we needed went into operations, and then training defined what they thought they needed. And we weren't 100% prepared in all facets. We will be moving into next year. Plus, looking at training, we're going to have to replace materials based on the heavy use during recruit class, and then be prepared for our ongoing training of the new recruits as they hit the streets, get with their companies, and progress and move forward as full-time members of the department. Again, the real learning for them is going to happen when they hit the street. You know, we get them grossly prepared in class, and then when they hit the street, they learn all the details. So training is going to kick up on the training time. As we move into the 300s, 3HW, you'll notice at the bottom had or middle to bottom, had a significant increase of 1,274%. Again, that's hyperinflated because we included physicals. We included our health and wellness from up top. Physicals are a big expense for us. So again, that 3,000 or the 10,000 or so, I think in the year before, $699 in the year before. Is that where we were at on that? Yeah, 6,000 plus we had spent another 3. So we were around 10 grand on that one. Moving up in the 100,000s, that's an exaggeration because of combining of categories and categorizing some 100 level items. EMS contracts. You'll notice a lot of decreases in EMS. In the E's, you're going to notice a minus 100% because of recategorization, minus 10%, minus 45%. Again, a lot of that is due to contracts. We don't have to carry them. They were brought in and paid for with the purchase of things that we bought last year. That equipment had service contracts included with it. So we're going to be good on upkeep for a while. However, those will phase in and out. So this will just be a down year in EMS. We'll have up years in another year or two where those will ramp up again. Where we could give back, we did. Where we increased gross increases, huge increases, were usually due to recategorization or combining of areas. 3SD went up due to new vehicles. When you look at the S's, it's support service design. We got to put decals on them. We got to have them striped. When you're talking about a ladder truck versus staff vehicles, considerable expense. We will maybe do some rebadging of vehicles next year, depending on logos and vision and rebranding of the department, but we'll see how that looks moving forward. Some of that's built in there, but we didn't move too deep into that. VoIP, you'll notice a big move up in our voice services. Where is that one at, Chief Phipps? There we go. I'm looking at it, trying to find it. There it is. You'll notice a big movement up there. We were understaffed on that one, or under budgeted. Again, we're just making sure that we don't have to dip too deep into being under budget. We know where we're at. We see where we're trending. Again, we increased that one appropriately, so that's not just an arbitrary increase. You're going to look at things like, let's see, subscriptions, food, grants. The grants was a new one that we put in. That one was for the amount of $10,000. That one's up here. And things like college tuition and all these different things that we really haven't utilized. The problem is we offer it, so we have to continue to budget for it, but we had 0% increases in those up near the top. I'm jumping around a little bit here, but grant writing, that's been something that our staff's talked about. We've not utilized here, not very often. We haven't looked into it. We haven't really been qualified for it. Now there's some ideas as you look at our subscriptions and our services. Those also went up. We have more employees in the office. There's some new mandates for fire prevention where they have to have so many hours of continuing education. That just went into effect with new legislation in July. So now we have to start thinking about that. But I think there's going to be some things in prevention that are going to allow us to start considering grants. And the reason I say that is based on those education hours, we have a great opportunity to start hosting that education here. And Levi came in today to talk about some ideas that he had as we moved into budget talks. It was good timing for him to maybe generate revenue as well. So they've hosted those classes for everybody around the county that we've talked about and bragged about that their division's done. Now we can look at start doing that outside the county, create our plan, create our syllabus, create a cost to go with it, and then bring in potential revenue. I just don't know what that looks like. And that idea just started coming around this week. But that also helps with education hours. That also is going to help with us being able to brag on our department and what we're doing to start looking at grants for the growth of our department and facilities. So again, as we start doing good things out in the public, which sometimes does cost money, we can look at what revenue we can bring in that we've never looked into before, at least at this department. Let's see, the last one, capital outlays. I want to go to the fours. As you guys go to the fours and look at that, you're going to see a lot of new categories there. But along the lines of taxes, and Ashley brought up lit earlier, we now, based on the conversation I had with you all earlier one-on-one, and I had the same conversation with each one of you, there were some conversations on lit on why we didn't get what we normally received in the years past, okay? And that pushed us in some different directions with our budget. Now that the township's healthy and we're relatively healthy, that lit money came back and they took over a lot of those category 1 items, health insurance and all that some of us were already paying for. They took over P and C and still were able to give us the share of lit that we had normally received in the past and make that appropriate based on percentage increases over the past couple of years. So we're going to start earmarking money to stay away from bonds and help us go cash based. You guys did a good job in the past, I'll say prior to my arrival here, of getting rid of the e-loans and getting rid of the tax anticipation warrants and things like that. But as we move toward the training ground, we had that in our plans to build this year at $2 million. Found out $2 million wasn't enough. We know we have some level of cash, but some of our cash is earmarked for bond rating. Some of our cash has to remain to get us to float us from January till the first draw in June. So we don't really have, if it says $8-9 million in the bank in December, we don't really have that. That money has got to be spent throughout the year to keep us out of those TALs and E-loans. However, we do have some spendable cash. And our goal is to take whatever level of spendable cash plus where you see 4AB, training grounds remodel, that's really a renovation. But take that cash, put it with this extra money here, the $613,000, and start combining that to get to the $3.5 to $4 million plus dollars and do a cash-based project there instead of putting it on the tax rolls. Any money that we have left over from the year that rolls into cash in the operating fund would be earmarked for some of the same purpose if we don't have to encumber it for operating into the next year. So our goal is to try to start encumbering and wisely use our cash to go cash based on capital purchases and for the building of that training ground that's grossly needed. With 16 people, we did a quick 1 month remodel. And I've showed the pictures of that classroom to some of you and brought you over to observe yourself. But even with 16 people, that's tight. And hosting them over here creates a logistical nightmare of people driving on the road back and forth because I don't have buses over here to take them back and forth. We have talked about purchasing vans, talked about doing other things, but again, in the name of safety, we have a training ground that has property that's suitable to start building its own facility and have a standalone facility. We just have to get rid of the house, get rid of the old dilapidated barns and use it the way it should be. So we're gonna start saving for that and earmark money. So if saving's a bad word, it's earmarked money for a major project. For AI, computers and technology wasn't in there last year. We're gonna look at revamping all of our computers. They're becoming outdated. As some of you see, you're working on some of those computers now. Have a few problems here and there. We brought the recruits in, same thing. We've got to start updating our cache of computers to operate appropriately as well and keep things seamless. Moving down to fire operating equipment. You see us with ballistic equipment right now. We put our men and women out on the street in a situation to use their ballistic equipment. We thought it was cool in the beginning, but it's red and it says fire on the front. That could be an indicator, right? So we should blend in with law enforcement. Whenever I took you to the active shooter, Amanda, you were able to go out and kind of see how that works, how we navigate. But we don't blend in well with law enforcement. We actually stand out. We're wearing a bright red vest. They're wearing their black or blues. So we're going to take a different approach, revamp our operational outfitting there, and buy ballistic equipment that more closely matches the police department. Then we'll look at what we can do with ours to capitalize off of it as well, because it's not going to be obsolete necessarily. The operations capital is and equipment, those are going to also include a new cart. The cart we have out there, there wasn't a lot of thought whenever you buy it off the floor. It didn't have the appropriate suspension. If you wanted to throw myself and one of you on the cot, plus a power cot on the back, we would be lucky to be able to steer. There's a lot of upgrades that would need to be done to it. There'd be another lighting package that would need to be on it to be more visible. Whenever you go out and you do a search in the winter or in the heat of the summer, we have to be able to go out whenever people are missing in times critical, high heat, low temps. Right now you get into it when you're doing 40, 50 miles an hour to get from point A to point B in a cart, that wind chill is pretty damn cold, right? So in order to outfit it with heat and air, to revamp the whole cart would cost more than it would be worth. So our goal is we're going to use that cart. We use it at the training grounds to accomplish, running bottles back and forth, running tools back and forth as needed, because we have everything kept in the cache in front of the barns and the training grounds in the back. It's a great cart for that, a great utility cart. It's good for standby at ball games if weather's predicted to be good, but we need a cart we can put in service. So that $50,000 to $60,000 is budgeted within the ops and operation capital to buy that outright and have a cart that we can have in service for urban search and rescue and other reasons as well. So we don't plan on getting rid of the one we have. It has a use. It's just not the appropriate use in emergency situations. And they make carts specifically for that. I think that covers about everything there. Health and fitness goes up, says 300%. We haven't really had a great budget to update weight equipment and strength equipment. If you go around, a lot of what we have is either obsolete or people were literally going around making deals, buying stuff on their own and bringing their own equipment into our weight rooms. Connie is one of our civilian medic kind of laws has gone out, and a lot of the equipment at Station 1 stuff she purchased herself along with other people. So our people shouldn't be going out buying weight equipment on a facility that we expect them to work out in. So we need to start replacing some of that, giving people their equipment back and putting the equipment that we want them using in. Are there any questions on our budget? I think that covers all my notes.
So just one question on capital, on computers and technology. It's not necessarily specific to fire, but as the township as a whole, is there, I think kind of like you laid out from a fire standpoint, there's a rotation and we know this apparatus is going to be end of life. Then do we have that same kind of rotation? And I only ask to see.
We don't.
I kind of see
So
it.
they're
You
kind
kind
of,
of have a hot spots are different. And I'm not
our
saying brands are
IT
different, but-
people put together for the ones that we use all the time, like our personal ones, the ones you guys have are just spare ones that sit around.
Right.
So they don't get replaced that often. But there is a plan out there. I don't know exactly how accurate it is. I know there's a couple of them that should have been not replaced in the year they said, but a couple years later. And it just depends on how often it's used too, right? And what it's used for,
Right.
Type of thing. So we do kind of have a plan, and we'll work through that as we get some of this money more allocated to what.
Hey, just from a multiple things. One, it just helps the plan, but two, the security aspects of things, make sure that you don't have somebody randomly doesn't have a Windows 7 and they get hacked and break down the whole township. And
So that's kind of what happened with the roll-around TV. Right? The roll-around TV is a great thing. It's a touchscreen, it's a computer on the back. It's Windows 7.
Right, that's what I
So, and we have talked about it, right? We don't use it as Windows 7 because I don't think it'll boot up right now. But we are going to have some of those things upgraded, but that's township-wide. But on the fire side, there's a lot of computers and stuff that we need to update. And again, there's ideas through IT now. They do lease programs, they do whatever. So we'll look at all of those.
Yeah, that's why I just bring it up. It's not, I don't want to be in the operating side of it. It's just more of a think about the.
Whatever we do, we'll do smart.
Yeah.
But again, there's a lot of things coming in that this group is thinking about that wasn't necessarily thought about, or if it was thought about, it wasn't exercised in the past. And we're going to exercise this. So whenever you look at our CUME fund, I'm going to go to that now and end. It's only the yellow up there that I need to talk about, but whenever it says cash, that is making right what wasn't put in the budget this year for Liz. So Ashley and I had an aha moment on, we have our budget and we have what we need, but it wasn't put together the way we expected. And we've already discussed that independently, and Ashley had a moment where she goes, I have this money and I don't know why I have it. We figured that out pretty quickly on why it was there. Again, we talked about the proper utilization of that money. We talked about it with Jeff Peters, and we talked about it with each of you. He said to pay for some capital projects or capital investments that need to be taken care of. So whenever you look at Engine 143, Medic 142, and Medic 141, we're going to pay cash for those. Some of that cash is ours. Some of that cash is from the lit money that didn't get allocated last year. What that does is it makes us cash flush in lit. And next year, you'll see we have about $735,000 left, but we're starting with about 1.5 million at the end of 24. So we'll make all these cash purchases. We'll get there. We'll upgrade fire gear. We put 125,000 there. When I came in, we had some people in expired gear. We'll make sure that doesn't happen. And if it does, it'll be for a very short time. We have the cash to replace it. We don't have to go search for it. The SCBA lease and Medic 144 payments will be coming to an end. That money was borrowed when money was cheap. So we're going to continue those leases because the interest on our accounts outweighs the interest we're paying on the leases. We will be replacing Kron's vehicle in 25, car 1490. And then we put station furniture updates, desks, beds, and recliners. A lot of things that are on hand right now, again, are either loaned by a firefighter based on their connections outside, and they reuse secondhand things. And as beds and recliners, those were bought new. Those are now aging and need to be replaced in some of our firehouses, not all. Fours is new. The remodel at Station 3, that'll get them new beds there. So again, but we need to make sure we're paying attention to Station 3. We got to make sure, we're prepared to house and outfit Station 5. So we now have that recurring station furniture every year at $25,000, and then it moves up as we look at inflation potentially going up, and we moved it to $30,000 in 27, 28, 29. Thank you for including those. So what does going cash-based do, and how's that another step? Well, if you go to the bottom of the page, knowing what we're at on interest rates for, that part's gone, but that's okay. Knowing what we're at on interest rates for the Station 5 bond, and it's about 6 or 7% fixed.
Yep.
So we're going to assume a 7% lease on vehicles, okay? At 7%, based on the lease payments that were set forth before in the old CUME budget presented last year, that was assuming 4% when money was a little cheaper. Now it's gone up. So if we do the lease at 7% versus going cash-based, we'll end up saving $1.2 million in CUME over the life of the vehicles by not leasing them. So again, that $1.2 million right now is another ladder truck. That $1.2 million gets us another engine. That $1.2 million positions us for the growth we need. So the red multicolored sheet you have in front of you where I'll end, if we're going over CUME, that's our staffing and our projected growth. We look at going next year to 36 per shift versus 31 right now. That's your recruit class. That's the implementational ladder 4. And that's the moving the engine from 4s down to 1s temporarily. But what we have to do is get out of the chess game of moving apparatus just to say they're there. That engine should really stay at 1s, but it's not. When we open 5s, we're going to move it down to 5s. And we know what kind of banter that created the last election, right? We're moving water from right on 36 at a central location, and we're going to move it south. We need it south. The neighborhood we're moving it by, where I got a majority of the signatures, with 3 houses that had significant fires in that area, just a mile and a half where 5s is going to be located. But we got to get out of the practice of playing chess. We have to start appropriately staffing and putting people in place. What we have now is growth for Station 5. What we need, and the question I think many of you on the board have had, is where does it stop? It stops at about 42 to 45 people. That is max staffing. That is our max build out. That is our max build out, assuming an engine beside each ladder to keep the ladders, the most expensive piece, having to be replaced all the time. That is properly manning each one with four per rig for safety. And that's also potentially putting in another medic unit. Is that 1 medic or 2 medics on that one? One more medic unit. And that's also adding the appropriate administrative staffing to go along with it. And what that looks like is maybe an EDO that's out helping, or a safety officer on shift. So we're not always pulling the admin out to safety runs as our call volumes go up. I can't expect everybody in the office to be on call 24 hours a day, plus their regular jobs. And that happens right now. The safety officer is our training chief, and then Chief Porter, Chief Phipps, they all split that. It would, at that time when we're max built, we would have another apparatus to run with the battalion, but under the battalion, and they would respond to safety immediately instead of having everybody come from home. And again, it's a safety issue, right? We have people that are spending long hours in here taking care of issues. We're not just a 40-hour operation in here. It's a 40-hour expectation. We're not in here just 40 hours. So max build up would be about 42 to 45 people, and then it levels out. And we have to balance that. Right now we have 300,000 or 400,000 left in the levy. That's a few people. That's it. So we have to balance that with AVs going up. We have to balance that with the money we have right now. The money that's put into capital purchases that I brought up, should it be recurring money? I could probably find another $1.5 million after those purchases next year to put into people. That's 10 or 12 people. If we dip into the rest of the levy, that gets us about 14, 15 people. That's one engine. Now we got to find another one. And if you want the township covered, that's what we have to work toward. And that's what I said. Once we get the answers to where we're at, we're stretched pretty thin. Now what's the answer moving forward? The answer moving forward is going to be a dance and a balance between levies and taxes. And we got to figure out where those go up and where they level out. In the short term, does it mean increases? It could. It depends on how soon we do it. Does it mean decreases? It could. It depends on how fast AVs go up to supplement the personnel we need. These aren't things that I want to put my name on. These are things we need for the community. We're doing everything we can to save and be smart. That's why going cash-based is, I think, another success for the board. We're in a position to do that. And this group's worked together to make it happen. By going cash-based, we can prove we can save $1.2 million. That justifies the purchases. But again, now we have to sustain it and grow our personnel with it. Any other questions on our budget? Thank you.
Okay. Looks like, so next steps, we have a public hearing on September 19th, 3. And then we will adopt the budget on October 10th at 3 as well. So those dates are set and pretty much just down now. Any other public comment or wishes to be heard? I just want to say thanks for what I know. I equally hate budgets and all the time today, so.
I didn't read every line.
What's that?
I didn't read every line.
No. I mean, I didn't say, you guys highlighted what you need to, but.
Creating them.
Yeah,
Terrible.
it's a lengthy process. I think you get a lot of thought into it, not just for this year, but what do things look like into the future? So that's important.
I'm gonna guess Ashley did a ton of work as well, so thank you for helping everyone.
Ashley made it look pretty. And then where we could just plug a number in and go, oh, there it is.
Make it easier on everybody.
Yeah, most definitely.
Good.
Kudos to Ashley, thank you.
Yes, very nice work. Okay.
Anything else? Just need a motion to adjourn.
I will move to adjourn at 4:01 PM.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
You made it.
For a long.